Hello, everyone. I'm Kamraun.
And I'm Billy. Welcome to the Horse Frog Podcast, home of excitable, energetic exchanges on all things Malazan.
Yeah, let's keep those energy levels up. Today we will be discussing Book 3, Chapter 10 of Gardens of the Moon, a novel in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. While covering this chapter, we realized the episode was going to be long again, so we are also splitting this chapter into 2 episodes.
Now, this podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review, and it's not intended to be a replacement to reading the books. Know that Kamraun and I think that this series is the best fantasy series ever written, and this is strictly fanboyed, where this is not critique. We're just loving on this series, so join us.
Yes, join us. And spread the word, too.
Yes.
If I could have one ask of everybody, it's you should at least tell one additional person to read this series. Not even listen to our podcast, but read the series.
Read the series.
And then if they're having trouble following along, then you can say, okay, well, I found this podcast that may help you get along with it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
I would like more people to read this series in general.
Yes. Oh, I would too. That's kind of our whole goal here because it's such an amazing series, dude. It's so amazing. Today is one of these episodes where it explains one of the reasons why we love this series. This has so many fantastic standout imagery. Oh yeah, that you and I have both. That I was looking through our stuff together, and these are some things that we carry with us on a daily. When my mind goes to this universe, these are some of the images that always stand out in my universe of Steven Erikson.
Yes.
It's some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll dive in on that point specifically when we get to that part of this chapter. We will be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion. There will be spoilers for those that have not read the books. We will try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book.
A quick warning, today's episode will contain some descriptions of violence. Not sure if it's graphic or not today, but it's not necessarily recommended for children.
All right, here we go. Chapter 10. The chapter begins with an excerpt from a conversation. Quote, Kalor said, I walked this land when the Talan Imas were but children. I have commanded armies 100,000 strong. I have spread the fire of my wrath across entire continents, and sat alone upon tall thrones. Do you grasp the meaning of all this? Yes, said Caladan Brood. You never learn. Now, this was recorded by Outrider Herlokel of the 6th Army, and I really love Caladan's response here. Yes. Kalor's prattling on, and then Caladan just shuts him down. It's beautiful.
It is. It's quite nice.
And I think this is an interesting intro to Kalor. We really haven't heard anything about him yet. This is our introduction to him.
Yeah.
It does give us a little bit of his background, right? But at this point, we don't know if he's an ascendant, if he's a human, if he's some other being. It's just a name.
You know, he remains kind of enigmatic in this. And I'll touch on that point later on in and of itself. But on first read through, I wasn't sure if it was, the same one at first. But I know it is. But you know what I'm saying. It's like,
yes.
But when I realized it was Caladan, you never learn. Herlokel is somebody in and of himself.
Yes, yes. We can't really talk about it.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
It's a danger thing. We may have said too much already. Talk is in Pale making his way to a mysterious meeting with someone at Vimkaros Inn. He has no idea who he is meeting there. The message was cryptic. The culling of the nobility has taken place in Pale, and Talk notes that it has done much to cloak Pale's atmosphere with a shocked stillness that hung about people like invisible yokes.
So, was Dujek able to make the culling not as brutal with his burning of...
That's my interpretation. He made it more difficult to identify the nobles.
Okay.
So, I think in this case... the culling that did take place, the initial order was 9 out of 10, with children included, were going to be culled, right?
Yeah.
And they probably had a much smaller pool to draw from to accomplish that.
Right.
Given they didn't know who was who. So it was probably a bunch of people turning other people in.
Yeah. They didn't get the blood orgy they wanted, so... Sorry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ever since the dinner with the adjunct a few days ago, Talk had kept to himself, periodically carousing with his fellow soldiers and choosing to dine with them instead of the officers, as was his privilege as ranking Claw. The adjunct was gone, and Tattersail had been reported missing. There was an uneasy peace between Dujek and Tashrin, one Talk assumed would not last. Dujek was busy restructuring Pale, and Tashrin was fruitlessly searching for Tattersail. Talk walked into the inn and drew little notice as he walked up to the innkeeper. His instructions had told him to dress in local garb. The innkeeper tells Talk he is at his service, and Talk tells him he has a reservation under the name Render Khan. The innkeeper finds the reservation on a wax tablet and leads Talk to a table on a balcony overlooking the inn's garden. Talk is sipping on Saltoan wine when a servant approaches and says, "Kind sir, I am to deliver the following message. A gentleman will soon join you who has been out of his depth, yet not aware of it. He is now." All right, so a couple things here. Saltoan wine is often mentioned on the continent of Genebakis. Saltoan is located to the east of Darujistan. And then you will also hear references of Gredfallen Ale.
Yep.
And this is located to the west of Darujistan on the coast of Lake Azure.
Okay. Well, so I see you're getting used to that Christmas gift.
Yeah, I guess I haven't mentioned that on the podcast. My mom got me a really nice, is beautiful, hand-drawn map of the Malazan world.
Wow. And
she framed it in a really nice picture frame and gave it to me for Christmas. And I sat there staring at this thing for like 15 minutes straight. I was looking at all the stuff, man. It's really cool to have. You gotta take a picture and send it to me, dude. I will. Yeah, it's beautiful. If anybody's interested in who did it or where to get it from, just email contact@horsefrogproductions.com and I'll send you the artist that did it. Talk frowns and asks if that's the message. The server confirms it is. Talk asks if the message is in the sender's own words, and the servant cryptically says, "And yours, sir," then bows to Talk and leaves. And as a reminder, Talk, we're about to see Perrin walk in, and this is what Talk said to him as he parted ways with him in Genebaris. They were in Genebaris, right?
Yeah, Pale.
No, it was when he escorted him into Pale. That's right. The Claw agent was the one that did Genebaris. Yeah. About 10 minutes before Perrin dies, he tells him he's out of his depth.
That's right. And he was. He was not wrong.
Yeah, but he knows he is now. Yeah. So the servant leaves. Talk's frown deepens and he sits forward, his muscles tensing. He turns to the entrance to the balcony just in time to see Perrin enter. Perrin is dressed in the manner of the local gentry and looks quite healthy. Talk stands up, grinning upon seeing Perrin. Perrin says, "Not unduly shocked, I hope. Did the message prepare you?" Talk tells him, "Barely. I'm not sure how to receive you, Captain. Is this according to the adjunct's instructions?" Perrin says that the adjunct thinks he's dead and asks, "Am I speaking to a Claw or to a soldier of the second?" Talk's eyes narrow. Talk's eye narrows, and he says, "That's a tough question." Perrin asks, "Is it?" His gaze is intense and unwavering. Wow. I love it. No BS. He's straight up.
Right up. I love it. And this, again, another reason to really love Perrin. And this read through, he is just so much cooler than I recall him being this cool.
Yeah. And you can see the effect on Talk. Talk hesitates, then grins again and says, "Hood's breath, no, it damn well isn't." "All right, Captain, welcome to the defunct second, then." Perrin is relieved and laughs. Talk asks for clarification on Perrin being dead but not dead.
So sorry. Can you hear it now? It's like, it's Monty Python. He's not quite dead yet.
Did you watch The Princess Bride yet?
No.
Okay, because Billy Crystal has a character in there, and one of the characters, I'm not going to ruin it for you, something happens to him, and then Billy Crystal's character is like, "He's not dead, he's mostly dead."
Mostly dead.
Yes. You got to watch that movie, man. That's your homework. By next week, I expect to hear your thoughts on Princess Bride.
Okay, Payne, make sure we watch Princess Bride. Okay. I've reminded my reminder. Oh, goodness.
Perrin tells him of the assassination attempt and attributes his survival to the assistance he received from Tattersail and Mallet. He's been recovering in Tattersail's quarters, and Whiskey Jack's instructions were to keep Perrin's existence a secret for the time being. Perrin asks Talk what he knows of the adjunct's plans. Talk is looking at the garden below and thinking to himself that Tattersail had known all of this at the dinner and kept it a secret, which is remarkable. Mm-hmm. Talk says, "Now you ask questions of a Claw." Perrin says, "I do." Talk doesn't answer. Instead, he asks, "Where's Tattersail?" He turns to look at Perrin and holds his gaze. Perrin jerks his head, then tells Talk what he knows. Tattersail is traveling overland to Darujistan. She knows a Talan Imass accompanies the adjunct, and she believes Lorne's plan includes killing Whiskey Jack and his squad, though Perrin doesn't agree. Perrin maintains that his role in the mission was to keep an eye on one member of the squad, and that person was to be the only one to die. The adjunct gave him the command of the squad after 3 years of service to her as a reward. He doesn't think she would take that from him. He asks if Talk can help him. Talk releases a long breath, then says, "The adjunct's mission, as far as I'm aware of it, involves far more than just killing Sari. The Talan Imass is with her for something else. Captain, the days of the bridge burners are numbered. Whiskey Jack's name is damn near sacred among Dujek's men. This is something of which I couldn't convince the adjunct. In fact, she seems to think the opposite. But if the sergeant and the bridge burners are eliminated, this army won't be pulled back in line. It will mutiny. And the Malazan Empire will be up against High-Fist Dujek with not a single commander who can match him. The Genebakan campaign will disintegrate, and civil war may well sweep into the heart of the empire." The blood had drained from Perrin's face, and he says, "I believe you. Very well. You've taken my doubts and made of them convictions, and they leave me with but one choice." Talk asks what that is. Perrin says, "Darujistan. With luck, I'll catch Tattersail, and together we'll attempt to contact Whiskey Jack before the adjunct does. Evidently, the adjunct can no longer sense my whereabouts. Tattersail forbade me to accompany her, arguing that Lorne would be able to detect me, but she also let slip that my death, in quotation marks, had severed the bonds between me and the adjunct. I should have made the connection sooner, but she distracted me." Talk thinks back to Tattersail's appearance on the night of the dinner with the adjunct and knowingly nods, saying, "I'm sure she did." Perrin made the first move, if I'm not mistaken. So what, she distracted him by dressing up? Is this there is a female present, I am distracted type situation? I mean, what do you think of this?
I believe that's probably likely the truth, what you said in the latter there, that yes, there is a female present. So yes, I'm distracted. It's like, that's the problem. It's like we are simple creatures, brother. It's like there's a woman in close quarters with us. We're always going to eyeball them with that. You know it. We can't help ourselves. We're thinking, this is bothering me. It's like, it's very distracting. It's like,
I was distracted.
Gussied up. She was very distracted. But she mentions later in this chapter,
she mentions being distracted by him as well.
So there's some mutual distraction going on here. So.
Yeah, but in her case, he made the move.
Yes, but she was dolled up. Is that all it takes, though?
I don't know. I think it's kind of what we already presented, right? There's a woman present.
Yes.
You don't need to say anymore. There's no clarification.
There's a woman. I'm sorry. Here's the clarification. There's a woman present. She has a pulse. We're dudes. It's like that's the clarification. Okay.
Perrin sighs and continues, saying, "Yes, well, in any case, I need at least 3 horses and supplies. The adjunct is proceeding on some kind of timetable. I know that much. So she's not traveling with much haste. I should catch up with Tattersail in a day or 2. Then together we can drive hard to the edge of the Talon Mountains, skirt them, and slip past the adjunct." Talk leaned back and smiled during Perrin's elaboration of his plan. Talk pokes a bunch of holes in it, telling Perrin he'll need Wiccan horses since he'll need mounts superior to those of the adjunct. He also asks how Perrin plans to get past the city gates dressed as a local, but leading Empire horses. Perrin blinks, providing no response. Talk grins and says, "I've got your answer, Captain. I'll go with you. Leave the horses and supplies to me, and I guarantee we'll get out of the city unnoticed." Perrin tries to object, but Talk firmly says, "Those are my conditions, Captain." Perrin coughs and accepts Talk's offer, saying the company would also be welcome. Talk says, "Good. Let's drink on the damn thing then." These two are quite the pair. They're both trying to do the right thing and don't seem to like any type of subterfuge. Yeah. It's no surprise they get along so well.
Yeah. Now, and I love the idea that Talk is a Claw. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but over the series we do get to know a few Claw members, but do you recall any of them having a sense of humor? Or any of them disliking subterfuge?
No.
He's like he's the exception.
I think it's his closeness with the army and the soldiers.
Yeah, you're right.
Because most of the other Claw, with the exception of Kalam, and Kalam is a little bit of a different scenario because he's just kind of a serious man by nature.
Yes.
But the Claw that are close to the soldiers are different than those that come in from the outside to clean up messes or to silence people.
Yeah. Yeah, they're probably just more, I guess, just, what would you call them? Just operatives, just your desk jockey kind of guys that are just your normal intelligence officers.
They're like I was going to say the low men in coats, but I think like CIA cleaner type person.
Yeah. That's what I think of a lot of the time.
Low men in coats doesn't really fit, does it? In this case,
no, but it kind of does. Yeah. In my brain, it does. I know exactly what you meant.
Yeah, that's from the Gunslinger universe, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Hey, there's still a lot of talk about that, by the way.
Yep, good.
It might be a real deal.
So we might get a Gunslinger TV series by somebody that's qualified to make it.
Yes.
Cool.
I'm excited. I hope it's. I just hope it happens before I die.
Yeah. Hopefully they do it justice.
Yes.
Tattersail is traveling in her warren, which is High Thier. It's becoming more and more difficult to maintain the tunnel. There is a power that is deadening the warren. Tayshrin didn't have the ability to attack the warren, but it was still being assaulted. The warren had become narrow and choked with obstacles. The walls were shuddering around her, and the air stank of something that had a tinge of sour brimstone and a mustiness that reminded her of unearthed tombs. Her power was being drained with every step she took. She realized she could not continue traveling in the warren. She cursed her carelessness, for she had forgotten her deck of dragons. Perrin had distracted her. Then she had experienced an unaccountable urgency to be on her way, so urgent that she left everything behind. She has to remind herself that Perrin belonged to Opan. Outside of her warren, she would be alone on the Revi plain without food and a bedroll. The haste with which she had left went against her every instinct. She was growing certain that it had been imposed on her. Her thoughts returned to Perrin and him being a servant of Opan's will. Finally, she reached the end of her resilience and began to withdraw her power, collapsing the warren layer by layer about her. She found herself standing on the ground in yellow grass. It was dusk, and the sun bathed the Talon Mountains to her right. I believe this makes her facing east. The Talon Mountains are south of Pale, but north of Lake Azure. So, yeah, I think just based off the orientation of everything that's going on, she's facing east, and then Lorne and Tool are east of her.
Okay.
Immediately ahead of her rose an enormous silhouetted figure who turned to face her and voiced a surprised grunt. Tattersail took a step back in alarm. The voice that emerged from the figure pushed the air from her lungs in a whooshing breath of relief, then terror. Bellerdan says, "Tattersail, Tayshrin did not expect you'd manage to come this far. Thus, I was anticipating detecting you from a distance." He lifted his arms in a childlike shrug. Tattersail could see the familiar burlap sack at his feet. Tattersail asks, "How has the High Mage managed to deny my warren?" Her terror began to fade and turn into weariness, almost resignation. Bellerdan explains that Tayshrin couldn't do that and simply used his powers of deduction, anticipating that she would go to Darujistan and could not use her warren to travel over water. Tattersail asks what happened to her warren. Bellerdan grunts distastefully and tells her that the Talan Imass that accompanies the adjunct has created around them a dead space. Their sorcery is devoured by his eldering powers. If Tattersail were to fully open her warren, she would be utterly consumed. Bellerdan tells her that Tayshrin has commanded him to arrest her. Tattersail asks what happens if she resists. Bellerdan sorrowfully answers, "Then I am to kill you." I never really got a bad impression of Bellerdan. We only see him mourning or sad at what he has to do. What's your impression of him?
I'm the same, other than the fact that he's extremely loyal to what he swears to.
Mm-hmm.
But because he said in a previous chapter, he said that Tayshrin was their protector. I mean, the Cadra's protector. So I find no fault with him. I don't find him to be. He's doing what he believes Tayshrin is right. At least and he's doing what what their protector demands from his people that work under him. I don't take any fault for him for it. I'm like you.
Yeah, he's kind of a tragic figure.
Very much.
Yeah.
And we're about to become one very soon here.
Yeah.
Sorry. Nudge, nudge. Wink, wink.
Wink.
That wasn't heavy-handed enough there. Sorry, folks.
Tattersall says, I see. She thought for a time, her heart thundering in her chest. All that remained of her past and her only true sense of her life was regret, an unspecified yet overwhelming regret. She asks where the Talan and the adjunct are located. Bellerdan says, perhaps 8 hours to the east. The IMAS is not even aware of us. The time for conversation is ended, Tattersall. Will you accompany me? She says, I did not think you want to betray a long-standing friend. Bellerdan tells her he would never betray her, that Tayshrin commands them both. How can there be betrayal? She responds that she once asked if she could speak with him at length, and he said yes, but now he says the conversation is ended. She twists the knife by saying, I had not imagined your word to be so worthless.
Wow.
Ouch.
Yeah, agreed.
Goad him a little bit, man.
Yeah, that's brutal.
There is anguish in his voice when he responds. He says, I am sorry, Tattersall. You are correct. I gave you my word that we would speak again. Can we not do this while we return to Pale? No, I wish it now, Tattersall snapped. Bellerdan agrees. Tattersall first asks about Tayshrin sending Bellerdan to Genebaris in search of some scrolls. Bellerdan says he did go there. Tattersall asks what the scrolls were. Bellerdan wants to know if this is of vital significance. Tattersall tells him that it is, because the answer will help her decide on whether to return to Pale with him or to die where she stands. Bellerdan says, very well. Among the archives collected from the city's mages, all of whom were executed, as you know, were found some copied fragments of Gothos Folly, an ancient Jaghut tome. Tattersall interrupts to say she knows of the tome. That's pretty harsh, putting all those mages to death.
Yeah, but apparently only one person is allowed to have them, and that is the Empress.
Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe they couldn't trust recruiting them.
Yeah, that'd be hard. Well, you can never. It'd be hard to trust them.
Crafty little buggers.
That they are. They're a squirrely bunch.
Yeah.
They're usually squirrely, I think, is the best adjective for those fellas, and or ladies.
Yeah. Bellerdan goes on, as a Thelamin, I possess Jaghut blood, though of course Gothos would deny it. The High Mage entrusted the examination of these writings to me. I was to seek out information concerning the burial of a Jaghut tyrant, a burial that was in fact a prison.
Yeah, I don't remember the fact about the Jaghut blood, therefore it being with the, whatever, Thalamin, Tartheno, Tobakah, Finn, whatever, all these races that have been listed before, but I don't recall that being in their blood for some reason.
I don't either. Yeah, I don't specifically ever recall the mention of that being the progenitor. That would be it, right? The Jaghut being the progenitors of the Toblakai or Thelamin or any of that.
I thought they were by themselves.
I did too.
Just kind of one of those, not necessarily one of the elders, but part. Well, I guess they are part. I guess they descend from the elders. So,
yeah, because the thing is, the Jaghut, though powerful, are not as big as the Toblakai.
No.
Because the Toblakai are giants.
Yeah.
They're really tall. They're over 7 feet tall, right? 7 or 8 feet tall is how tall they come in, somewhere in there. Yeah, and the Jaghut, I never got the impression that they were that big.
I always thought them like 6 to 7, maybe.
Yeah.
Like just maybe 7 foot on the outside, but at least 6. But yeah, they're tall, but not giants. Just tall bunch.
Mm-hmm. Tattersall says, wait, the Jaghut had no government. What do you mean by a tyrant? Bellerdan says, one whose blood was poisoned by the ambition to rule over others. This Jaghut tyrant enslaved the land around it, all living things, for close to 3,000 years.
Wow.
The IMAS of the time sought to destroy it and failed. It was left to other Jaghut to attend to the sundering and imprisoning of the tyrant. for such a creature was as abominable to them as it was to Imass. There's some important information in here. Yeah. First, the Jaghut had no government, and this is our intro into their society, really.
It is. And this is where, what's funny, this mirrors, there's a lot of races from Michael Moorcock, has a bunch of races as well. And some of these races sometimes kind of remind me. The Jaghut reminds me of some of the stuff that, from a Moorcock, for some reason. There is a couple of races that they're just family units, and that's it. They don't gather other than being a family, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very, very similar to the Jaghut in that aspect.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah.
The second thing here is there's a little bit of reinforcement on the Imass's hatred of the Jaghut. We had previously mentioned that anytime the Imass find out about a Jaghut, they effectively stop what they're doing and go deal with that Jaghut.
Yes,
and they cannot abide the existence of these members of this race. So this kind of reinforces that. Tattersail's heart hammered in her chest, and she says, "Bellerdan, where was this tyrant buried?" Bellerdan tells her that he concluded the barrow lies to the south, in the Gadrobi Hills directly east of Darujhistan. Tattersail says, "Oh, Queen of Dreams, Bellerdan, do you know what you've done?" Real quick here, the Queen of Dreams is another ascendant. She's the Queen of High House Life. And we don't see a lot of her in the main series. Esselmont has a little bit of her in his books, though.
Yes.
Bellerdan says he did as he was commanded by the High Mage. Tattersail says, and that's why the Talan Imass is with the adjunct. Bellerdan doesn't understand her. Tattersail says, "Damn it, you brainless ox! They plan to free the tyrant, Lorne's sword, her Odotarl's sword." Bellerdan refuses to believe this and claims they are likely trying to stop someone else from releasing the tyrant. He's pretty naive.
Yeah, he is.
I guess he just thinks they're the good guys.
Yeah. Well, apparently, like I said, it's something in his manners. I mean, right now he's a broken man, or he's broken. You know, the woman he was sworn to is dead, torn to bits in front of him and being devoured in front of his eyes. So, I mean, he's kind of a husk himself right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have loved the chance to get to know him more.
Yes. It sounds really cool.
Yeah, I think so.
I want to see him crush some skulls.
I do. We didn't see enough of that.
No, I think we only saw one.
The one.
Yeah,
the one skull.
Of course, he had to. The one fight he was in, he had to crush somebody's skull.
Hey, he lived up to his epithet.
He lived up to his name.
It's like, that's right. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to. Apparently, he seems pretty chill here, but you don't want to make him mad because he might just crush your skull. I guess he's just going to crush your skull.
Yeah. He's like kind of like Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
You know, you make him angry, he's going to Hulk out on you. But until then, he's a mage, so, you know, he's kind of more of the smart scientist type.
Yeah, exactly. Most of the time, he's pretty chill.
Yeah. I wonder if anybody else has compared him to the Hulk in Bruce Banner before.
I like that you just did. He is. He is. Oh my gosh, he's just as powerful. But it's just more horrific because he crushed that demon's skull with his hands. I mean, it's not like he used an item to crush the skull. That's what's worse. He used his bare hands to crush the skulls. You're like, wow. Yeah. It's like, I think I'd rather have him smash my head in with a big pipe than have him do it with his bare hands.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's more horrific.
Tattersail tells him she can't go back. She must continue on and asks him not to stop her. Bellerdan stubbornly tells her they are to return to Pale and asks her to let him take her back so he can continue to search for a burial location for Nightchill. To Tattersail, there was no choice left, but there had to be a way out. Remembering Bellerdan's words that if she accessed her warren, she would be consumed, her eyes fell to the burlap sack and could detect the faint gleam of sorcery. Sorcery from her spell of sealing that she had done as a gesture of compassion. She thinks to herself, is this my way out? Hood's breath, is it even possible? She thought of Hairlock and his journey from dying body to a lifeless vessel. Tattersail stepped back and opened her warren. High Thier magic blazed around her. Bellerdan staggered back, then steadied himself. He screamed something which she couldn't make out, then he charged her. She regretted his fatal courage as the fire blackened the world around her, even as she opened her arms and embraced him. Do you take her idea as attempting to soul shift herself?
I do now. I didn't until this read through.
Yeah,
because of the
same
fact,
thing.
Because of the fact that what she said before that, it's like, whoa. I wasn't thinking that at all until this read through. I'm like, holy smoke, she was planning this. I mean, not planning this. It's like it's her Hail Mary.
What's interesting is I always just thought it was an odd occurrence that caused the thing to happen that happened, right?
Yes, that's what I thought.
But that one little sentence, when you actually see it, where she thinks of hairlock and the soul shifting, moving to an inanimate form, it's like that one sentence alone changes the viewpoint on it. And I didn't see it until this read through either.
Yeah, and here's
that's crazy.
The other thing. It's the fact that Tattersall is thinking this shows her own confidence and mastery. To even contemplate it after seeing it done once by Ben, that's quite bold. I mean, I get being pushed to the limit, and that may be your only option, but dude, that's bold. And like I said, she has the confidence to try it.
Yeah, nobody puts babies back in a corner.
No, you don't. Sorry.
R.I.P. Patrick Swayze.
Yes.
Oh, man. Somebody mentioned Roadhouse the other day. The quote
I've never
was...
seen it either. I've never seen Roadhouse. Okay.
Be nice until you're not.
For me, the only Roadhouse reference I ever get is from Family Guy and Peter walking around kicking things, saying Roadhouse, and just like kick every time he says every time he says Roadhouse, he has to kick someone in the face, because apparently I guess that's what Swayze did in Roadhouse, is kick a bunch of guys in the face. I understand
not that
he's
many.
A bouncer. Okay,
yeah, he's a cooler. He's not referred to as a bouncer. He's referred to as a cooler.
A cooler, okay.
Yeah, and he would go to these really rough bars or establishments. They'd hire him to get the place under control, straighten up the crowd, and turn it into a profitable endeavor.
Oh, okay. Roadhouse.
His name's Dalton.
Dalton, okay.
For those of you that have not watched Roadhouse, you need to watch Roadhouse. It's a classic 80s movie. Has Sam Elliott in it. That's his mentor in the movie.
Oh, well then, dude, you could have sold me on Sam Elliott.
I just did.
I'm way more down with the Sam Elliott than Swayze, even though Swayze's a Texas boy, and I should be totally down with the Swayze. But I don't really know that many Swayze movies that I've not really seen.
Point Break.
I did not
Dirty Dancing.
That. Nope.
Oh, I'm gonna hit you for a loop right here. Black Dog. You ever heard of Black Dog, where he's the truck driver?
I've heard of it, but I forgot that was him. Black Dog.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? You got what's funny?
Roadhouse we already talked about.
His brother is one. He's got a brother, and you see this guy that will remind you of Swayze because it's his brother. But do you ever watch Sunny? It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Oh my word!
I watched it in the past. Kind of stopped halfway through. I think.
Right. It gets a little rough, but there's the time when they're doing the boat and the implication. Have you seen the implication?
No.
Oh, okay. The implication is just in and of itself. The idea of when I say this to people who have seen Sunny know what you're talking about is that Dennis wants a boat because he wants to take women out into the middle of the lake. And, but because due to the implications, they will want to consummate a relationship with him. And the question is, what's the, what? He goes, are you going to kill these women? he's like, no, but it's like, but it kind of, things can happen on the sea, so I'm sorry. So that's why I kind of, but they're talking about being tasty treats, taking the tasty treats out in the water. And then there's an episode with Dennis, they're on the boat with Swayze's brother and everyone else. And they realize that, like, wait a minute, are we the tasty treats this? Where they show this gang of biker looking fellas and they freak out and run away. So sorry.
Yeah. All right. And one final movie, Ghost. He was in Ghost.
Yeah, I know he's in that. Never seen that either.
Those are the ones that come to mind off the top of my head.
A classic 80s, and KP loves classic 80s movies, but I can't get her to watch. There's one movie that she hasn't watched, and she loves horror movies and stuff, and she will watch it, but she didn't want to watch it. It's Terminator, dude.
Oh, okay. Has she seen the Terminator 2?
No.
She hasn't seen any of them?
she's apparently a Terminator virgin. So she's. I'm like, what? It's like, I
Okay.
need to show you these movies. It's like, I must show you these movies. And so it's like, but there's kind of like, well, it's kind of a guy flick. I'm like, dude, it's a horror flick. The first one is, he's menacing. He's great.
Yeah.
He's horrifying. That's a horror movie.
It is. Yeah.
It's mostly horror because he's the unkillable machine is so.
Yeah, I agree.
And Schwarzenegger's fantastic. He doesn't say 10 words. I'll be back. That's it. I'll be back is the greatest sentence ever uttered. I'll be back.
Yeah, and then Terminator 2, I need your clothes, your boots,
I need your
and your
clothes.
motorcycle.
Oh, and what's great in Terminator 1, the first guy that he kills is Bill Paxton. He punches him in the gut and punches his heart out and then takes his jacket. And he wears that jacket through the whole movie.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Bill Paxton also in
Also,
Aliens.
R.I.P.
Yeah,
Dude,
R.I.P.
Aliens.
Yeah.
Dude,
We need to
great
stop.
flick.
We need to stop.
Okay.
We're going to just
Sorry.
keep... Okay. We're cutting the digression off. All right.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Wow. We haven't digressed that hard in a while.
We have the ability to digress for like 2 hours straight. This is what it was like when we were working in returns at Fry's Electronics and it was slow. It was just digression after digression for the whole shift, basically.
Yeah, digression as profession.
A professional digressor.
Yes. We're working on it. We're working at that, folks. Help make it possible, please.
Okay. All right, moving along. We are taken to Lauren and Tool, who are facing west. There is a tension swirling about
I'm
Tool.
so sorry. I love all of your. They're facing this way. That way, your map is improving your narration skills. Thank you. I love it.
Appreciate it. There is a tension swirling around Tool that she could almost see. She asks, "What is it?" As she looks at the white fountain of fire rising above the horizon. She says, "I've never seen anything like that." Now, a white fountain of fire rising above the horizon. They are 8 hours to the east of this happening. Okay? That's a pretty good distance away.
Yes, it is.
And you've mentioned in earlier episodes some of the scenes and imagery that stick with you from this book, right? It's generally just a couple ones that come to mind. Yeah. And for me, this pillar of fire reaching into the sky has always left a heavy impression on me. It's one of the core memories I have visually from this book.
Okay. And I have a lot from this book. But there's this one, and later on from this very chapter, the hairlock stuff with the ravens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that one always stands out. Of course, let's just talk about I'm not going to say any names, but the entire third act, the last act of the book is just chock full of craziness upon craziness. And it's like, how does he do that? How does he stack more on top and still make it so amazing? He does. It's like, oh my word.
Yeah.
The great finale. It's like, how does he keep getting more ridiculous and make it and sell it? He does brilliantly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be fun getting to that later stuff.
Yes,
pretty
I'm excited.
dense. Yeah,
I get excited talking about these chapters.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, this one was good, for sure. Yeah. Tool says, "Nor I. It is within the barrier I have cast around us." Lauren thinks that's impossible. Tool agrees, saying, "Yes, impossible to last this long. Its source should have been consumed almost instantly. Yet he falls silent. The pillar of fire still raged in the night sky as it had for the past hour. The stars swam in the inky darkness around it, the magic swirling in a frenzy as if from a bottomless well. On the wind was a smell that left Lauren slightly nauseous." Lauren asks Tool, "Do you recognize the Warren?" He tells her Talon, Thyr, Denul, Driss, Tennis, Thelementolokai, Starval, Demelaine. Lauren says, "Starval Demelaine? What in Hood's name is that?" Tools simply says, "Elder." Lauren says, "I thought there were but 3 Elder Warrens, and that's not one of them." Tool tells her there were many Elder Warrens, all of them born from one, Starval Demelaine. All right, we need to review these Warrens, because on my first read-through, I was like, what the heck is all this stuff?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Talon is the Talan Imas Warren, which is associated with fire. Thyr is the path of light. Denul is the path of healing. Driss is the path of stone or the path of earth. Tennis is the path of the land. It's bound to the cycles of the seasons. It was associated with a handful of deities, including the boar god Tenerok, who is also known as Fainur.
Okay.
So you'll sometimes hear Fainur's tusks referred to as a curse.
They say the Boar of Summer, too. Is that Fainur?
Yes.
Okay.
Thelomen Toblakai is an interesting one. Here is a quote from Runthurvian, who is a character in the later books. Among the ancient Toblakai, according to our own histories, there could arise individual warriors who became something of a warren unto themselves. Such power varies in its efficacy, and it would appear that this sort of blood talent was waning in the last generations of the Toblakai civilization, growing ever weaker.
Wow. So that's what I was alluding to earlier about a certain Toblakai
Mm-hmm.
that we will be loving on later on in the series.
Right. In this particular case, it's Bellerdan, and we can assume that he has his own warren.
That's wild, dude.
It is, isn't it?
So I didn't even think about it being him because that's so do you think? Okay, so their blood magic is closer to Elder in a way.
Yes. All right, and then finally, Starvald Demelaine is also known as the First Warren, the Warren of Tiam, and the Warren of Alaint or Dragons. It lay at the center of the system of warrens. All other warrens sprouted from this warren. Okay. Now, a couple of episodes ago, we were talking about this, and I guess this could be considered the heart of the warrens. Yeah. Then the elder warrens are considered the arteries, and then the human warrens are kind of like blood vessels when you kind of try to map it out visually.
Yeah, and that makes way more sense.
Yeah. It confuses me.
Steven Erikson mentioning this early really trips me out.
What confuses me about this specifically is we had been kind of mentioning that when you're talking about this magic system as a vascular structure, that the walls are being assaulted by chaos. So to have chaos as the heart, that makes sense, and then everything gets more refined as you go out. But what doesn't make sense in this analogy then is the chaos assaulting the walls of each warren. Because in that particular case, then the whole body, if you will, is chaos, including the heart, and then the vascular system has the magic within it, right? Because when a hole gets poked in a wall of a warren, chaos comes in, and it weakens the warren. It's like a ruptured blood vessel or artery or something like that.
Yeah. So it's even while us talking it out helps more, it's still confusing. So
yeah. Okay. Lorne asks Tool who could manage such a conjuring. Tool says, "There was one once. Of worshippers there are none left, so he is no more. I have no answer to your questions, Adjunct." Who do we know that has no worshippers? Tool staggers as the pillar of fire blooms outward and winks out. A distant thundering rumble reaches them. Lorne whispers, "Gone." Tool says, "Destroyed. Strange, the source is indeed destroyed, but something has also been born. I sense it, a new presence." Lorne demands to know what it is. Tool shrugs and says, "New. It flees." Lorne isn't sure whether this is something to worry about. She glances once more to the western horizon and sees a huge cloud blotting out the stars. She shivers. She thinks it's time to sleep and that Tool will stand guard, so she needn't worry about any surprise visitors. She walks into the camp and sees Tool standing immobile beside the flames of the campfire. The fiery glimmer that jumped along his withered flesh and bone helm once again triggered something primordial in her mind, and with it came a deep, unreasoning fear of darkness. She stepped close to Tool and whispered, "Fire is life," the phrase seeming to rise from the depths of instinct. Tool nodded. He says, "Life is fire. With such words was born the first empire. The empire of Imass. The empire of humanity. You've done well, my child." I guess this makes sense since the emperor sitting on the first throne is what caused him to reawaken the Talan Imass. The first throne for the first empire. Thoughts?
I see. This is where I sometimes get confused with that stuff because I think of the first throne, but then I think of this is one thing I don't know if I can say, but I'm going to say it. I mean, it may just be for us. But Calor, did he come after the Imass?
Well, he said IMAS, he was alive when the IMAS...
Before the first IMAS?
Yeah.
So is he the first throne?
That's a good question.
But never allowed to ascend.
That poem at the beginning does mention Kalor.
Yeah.
He said he was alive at the time of the IMAS, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know.
And because see, in a way, I was always kind of under the impression that, especially with this statement from Toole, "You've done well, my child." I've always struggled with that one. Why? I mean, is she that makes me think that humans descended from the IMAS. But if Kalor was here first, Kalor doesn't strike me as anything but like humans like we are.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they were already here, but we didn't appear to descend from Kalor.
When he says, "You've done well, my child," I think her intuition that fire is life is what he's referring to.
Okay. Thank you. I was just curious if there was something deeper to that than just maybe this is how they taught their children.
And I don't know everything. I could be wrong too, but that seems to make sense in that context of that statement. Right with what's going on right there. Yeah. But in terms of the first throne, first empire, I think that all kind of fits together, right? The empire of humanity. He says it's the empire of humanity, so I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I get confused on this. This is some imagery that they use a lot of: first throne, first empire, and stuff like that. And I love the thoughts, but at the same time, I'm confused sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I become less confused on all of our read-throughs, this one, that's still things. Those are things that are never cleared up. At least we might clear them up on this read-through of our 10 books. So maybe 10 years from now, we'll have an answer.
What's interesting is sometimes I think this early in the game, he's planned out a lot of stuff, but some of this stuff may be formulating still, and he hasn't really finalized what he thinks is going to happen. So maybe he wrote something early on that didn't exactly line up 100% with the way it ends up 6 books later.
That's true. And the other thing that I'm curious is his curious on his new series, because that's like a 10 years later.
Uh-huh.
And it's like there is still further refinement. I'm not going to say a whole lot more because you haven't read that stuff yet. I don't want to, but there's still further refinement but from the Deck of Dragons to something else, almost like Pogs.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding. I mean, it's the only thing I can liken it to. But it's like
you got a slammer. But there's you got a slam.
It's kind of like, but it's almost like there is these there's some other ascendants have risen up, and there's smaller fractious units within our existing, like there's further refinement still going on. So I'm kind of curious to where he's going. I mean, I wonder if he has 20-year plans. There was the first series. There was this series. I'm hoping that this series he finishes it before, because he still hadn't finished his first Tist series.
I don't know if he wanted to finish that, because I seem to remember. I can't remember exactly what was said, but it was almost like he wasn't as interested in finishing that. Maybe it wasn't being received as well as some of the other stuff, I think.
I hope the Karsa stuff's good, because I'll tell you what, I loved that first book. It was really good.
Yeah, I don't want to read it until all 3 are done, because that's one of those ones where I had the luxury of being able to read back to back to back the entire series. He had just finished The Crippled God when I got to it. And so,
nice.
Oh man, that was incredible just to read it straight through. Not the cliffhanger.
That's how it was for me. Yeah, because you did that to
at
me.
The end
when
of,
I read it was
9.
Straight on through.
Yeah.
It was like a 10-month read. It may have been a full year read, but I couldn't read enough of it at any given time. I just had to keep sitting there going, oh my! I remember I kept coming to you going, dude. I kept coming to y'all, dude. This is crazy, man. This is wild.
Yeah. Well, Dane was telling me the other day he's reading Memories of Ice and he can't put it down.
Nice.
Yeah, he's that into it. He's almost more into it than Dead House Gates. So it reads a little bit different. Yeah.
It does. It's different, but it's a great one, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. So for standout moments, let's talk about those iconic images.
Okay.
I particularly enjoyed the rapport between Perrin and Talk.
Yes.
I love how those two get along.
Oh, I do too. And it seems, and again, on this read through, Perrin is such a different character to me on this read through. He's a lot less. I always thought he was haughty. He's not haughty at all. I don't think.
Yeah.
He's actually quite humble.
Yes.
For being everyone. I think everyone expects him to be haughty, but he's really quite humble. And he's been humbled real rapidly, so I've really liked him, and I love them together for sure.
Yeah. The Pillar of Fire and the realization that so many Warrens had been involved in that shaping.
Yes.
And as we learn more about it, the fact that it burned for an hour, the fact that from miles away you could feel the heat, the fact that from 1,000 miles you could see it reaching into the sky. I mean, just the scale of it and the awesomeness of it, the image is incredible.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, because I think if you're like me, I just see like two figures like clutched together at the heart of a sun almost. Just but more of a huge spotlight aiming right up.
Yes.
Some great image. Great image.
All right, you got any final thoughts?
No, man, just a great episode.
Yeah.
I hope
Good job tonight.
I hope everyone great job. I hope everyone in the community had a great holiday season, man.
Yeah, and we're recording on New Year's Day 2023. Right. So, this will be our first episode of the year. And we'll have 52 episodes this year, one a week.
That's the plan.
Yep. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good night.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we'd really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at horsefrogproductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.